I want to I want to start by just saying, as somebody who's watching this podcast, my guess is that you're someone who would do anything for the people that you love. You show up, you give, you hold space. You're the one that people probably call when things are falling apart, when there's a challenge or a struggle. You're the one that hangs in there and you're the one that stays. But what I'm wondering is what happens when someone tries to do that for you. Do you do things like deflect, minimize, say, you didn't need to do that, or immediately exchange something back so that you don't have to receive? And then maybe wonder why you feel so depleted. So today we're going to talk about the pattern that is underneath that. And it probably goes deeper than you think. So if you are watching me live or on the replay, drop a heart in the comments if receiving has ever felt harder for you than giving. Because if that's the case, I see you, my friend, and I am so glad you're here. We're going to have a great conversation. All right, friends, let's bring in Soul Talk.
So self-service, that's the way. Welcome to Soul Talk, shine today.
All right, friends, welcome back to Soul Talk. I am really excited about today's conversation. It's a conversation, and it's one of those topics that I think oftentimes we're used to. We're used to hearing about it. It seems simple on the surface, but when we really dive in, when we start going deep, it touches everything. It touches your relationships. It touches your business. It affects your energy. It affects your ability to serve, your connection to spirit, like all of it, all of it. So, Soul Talk, my friend, is where soul meets real life. And I'm Dawn Johnston, and this is a space where we talk about spiritual things in practical, grounded, everyday ways. Because your spiritual life is not meant to be something separate from your real life. It's really meant to live inside of you. So, if you're here live, say hello. We're going to want to welcome you in the chat. I love seeing you there. And if you're watching the replay, I read every single one of the comments. So please be sure to leave yours in the replay as well. And if this podcast is supporting you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone that you know might enjoy it as well. All right. And if you love what we're creating here, share the love and spread the word, because that really means everything to us. All right, friends. So I wanted to start by sharing something around this topic, receiving, and one that I have lived personally, not just in my personal life, but also in my business life, and really like in my bones. Like, this is a topic that I really, really get. And so I think I'll start receiving when I was young, like little. No problem at all. I was like a great receiver and had no problem receiving compliments and gifts and things like that. Probably for some of you, you felt the same way. But somewhere along the way, that shifted. And for me, I think that shifted as I became a teenager and I started attaching value to what I could give, and I started almost taking value away when it was something that I needed. And I hadn't really thought about that until I actually was prepping for this podcast, that I think that we often might be trained into this, but I think we also start witnessing the world around us, and we look around and we see some of the things that are happening and some of the ways that people are experiencing life and responding. And it was so ingrained in my life, and probably in yours too, to be a great giver. Be a great giver. And if you're a great giver, then that's like the most important thing. And being a receiver was never even a conversation. It was never a conversation. Would you agree? Is that something that you felt as well? I know for me, um, it was giving, giving, giving from the time I was like, I don't know, 10, 12 on. And so when I started thinking about receiving, there's a lot of ways that we receive, right? We receive compliments, and we receive gifts, and we receive acknowledgement, and we receive um, um, uh, input, and we receive sometimes some feedback, and then we receive money, and we receive energy, and receive love, and receive support. Like, there's lots of ways that we receive. And so, as I was thinking about this, the conversation to me really started to come, I guess, to a place where I started to recognize where a lot of the challenge was when I look back at when I first started actually doing this work. So, if we go way back in the Wayback Machine to about 2002, I was starting to be asked about teaching classes and teaching workshops and things like that. And I never felt like I was a teacher. That was not something I ever planned to do. It wasn't something I wanted to do. And so when that invitation was open to me, it, it, it was like, nope, I don't do that. And I kind of just pushed it off. And I had people that were coming to me saying, yeah, but you could, and please do. And I was like, nope, I can't. And I didn't really realize at that time that part of the reason that I didn't allow myself to be a teacher is I didn't know how to receive the acknowledgement. I didn't know how to receive the attention. I didn't know how to receive the money that people would be giving me for the thing that I was teaching. And so this was a really challenging experience for me. And I was kind of pushed into it, which probably was a good thing because I had people around me that just kept asking me over and over and over and over again. And I kept trying to ignore it and push it away. And it kept showing up and showing up. I'm sure you've had that in your life as well. And so the story that I want to share is in my Wayback Machine in 2003, 2002, 2003 is when I actually decided to start doing readings for a living. And so I started doing appointments, classes and appointments in my living room of my house. And I had a 2-year-old and a 10-year-old at the time. And life was busy with those kids. And so during that time when people would be coming over to the house, I would have to hurry up and clean up, and I have to do something with my kids or have my husband take them somewhere or something like that. And that made it really difficult. But I found that I loved it. I loved serving people. I loved doing the work to help them find ways to connect with spirit, to open up to their angels and their loved ones in spirit, to be able to help them find some peace in their heart and in their mind. And it was such powerful work. And I really felt like it was so valuable. It was such a gift. It was so valuable. And so when that started happening, and, this was in person because online didn't exist, I started um, recognizing that when people would give me money or they would ask me, how much is the class or how much is a session, I could barely spit it out. And I certainly could not just take the money from them. It was too hard. I literally couldn't do it. It would make me like nauseous. And I didn't really recognize at the time that that was as big of a problem as it was initially. What I did was, instead of having to take the money from someone, I created a box and I wrote on the box donations. Because even when they would ask me, how much does this session cost? Classes, I did a little bit better on. I'm like, classes are $10 a class. Remember, this was in 2002, $10 a class. But my sessions at that time were like $60. And I couldn't even ask for $60. And so I would just say, you know what? You can just pay whatever you feel like it was worth to you. And and that felt better to me, and then they could just put their money in the box and I didn't have to accept it. We'd have a conversation around it. Like, it felt very sticky to me. And I didn't realize that what I was doing was I was putting a big burden on the people that were coming to me. And I want you to think about this way for a minute. And I didn't recognize it. But instead of just having a rate that hey, it costs $60, people would say, okay, well, but what do you charge? I'm like, whatever you feel like it's worth. And so then they would feel responsible, like, are they paying too much? Are they paying too little? They had no frame of reference. It really wasn't fair. Have you ever been in a situation like this where you just felt so uncomfortable that what I was doing was placing my discomfort onto the other person and making them feel uncomfortable? Not really healthy, but I'm here to tell you the truth. So this is what happened. This was the truth. And then I had a client one day that said, I really would appreciate it if you would just give me a price, because I want to honor your time and your energy, and I don't know what that is for you. And that kind of woke me up a little bit. And I realized that I really had a problem with receiving. And then I started kind of looking outward from that monetary. I actually had a hard time receiving compliments. I had a hard time receiving help. I had a hard time receiving support. Like, it wasn't just receiving on a money level, it was receiving all the way around on all levels. And I wonder if that's been true for any of you. And if it has, just let me know. Type receiving maybe in the comments, just so I know who are my people who are actually challenged with receiving. And so for me, that created an awareness in me that something that I needed to do some work. I had some work to do, which is always great, because then, we can start to heal it. It took me a couple of years actually to get to a place where I could stop having my little donation box, have flat rates, and actually take money out of somebody's hand. And what happened, and the way that this shifted for me, and I'm going to share this story, I think it could be really helpful for you, is I went within, because that's usually what I do when I'm struggling. I go to spirit. I'm like, okay, I need some help. I need some guidance. What is going on inside of me? And so, of course, I knew that it was receiving, but what was the issue? And what I recognized is I had like this deep ingrained belief that if you were using spiritual gifts, intuitive gifts, like I was, that you should not charge for those gifts. I think a big part of that was being raised in Salt Lake City, Utah. And even though I wasn't raised Mormon, everyone around me was, and I knew a lot about the religion, and everything in that religion was volunteer. You volunteered your time, you volunteered your energy, you volunteered your family to volunteer. You went on missions. Like, everything was about you serving for no exchange monetarily back. So that was deeply ingrained inside of me, but I didn't recognize it. And so as spirit was helping me unwind this, and I recognized, oh, this is an issue where I don't feel like I should receive for these gifts and these blessings. I had to start looking at it I had to see how I could change my belief and look at it from a different perspective. And so what happened though is spirit gave me a beautiful visual, which was so helpful to me. At that time, so it was 2002, and uh, the Chicago Bulls were the big football or the big basketball team at the time. They were winning like everything, and in the last several years. And so they showed me a vision. So I'm in my kind of deep healing work, and they showed me a vision of Michael Jordan taking a shot. Now, Michael Jordan, his jersey number was 23, and my birthday is 23. And so I look at numbers as symbology. And so he was taking a shot, and he was up in the air, had his tongue hanging out, like it was the whole image. And when I saw that image, spirit said to me, that's a spiritual gift. And then for some reason, and I wasn't really into sports at the time, I loved basketball, but I wasn't into football and any of these other sports. But then they started showing me other players that were playing. Like they showed me the Cowboys quarterback, and they said that's a spiritual gift. And then they showed me like an artist, and that's a spiritual gift. And then they showed me um, different um, uh, symbols of service, like Mother Teresa. This is a spiritual gift. And then they would, so I had all these different visions of what a spiritual gift was. And what they were saying was everything is spirit in nature, everything. And so everything is energy first, everything is spiritual in nature. And all these people that have these great gifts and these great talents that you would never compare yourself to, it's the same thing. And they get money, they get paid for their gifts. Why wouldn't you? And I'll tell you what, that was it. It clicked. And I remember when I was in that, I was feeling it was really uncomfortable, right? It was really uncomfortable because I knew that there was something inside of me that felt like receiving was selfish, wrong, had to be earned first. And that felt edgy to me. And then I'd had this experience from spirit showing me, hey, everything is a spiritual gift in nature. And that just helped me to recognize that my gift was no different than anybody else's. And so let's start by talking about how we were trained. Okay. Most of us, especially women for sure, and especially heart centered people, those of us were raised in environments like mine where giving was celebrated, right? Like you got kudos, great job, you're a giver, you donate your time, you run yourself ragged. Like that was a celebration. And receiving was almost, it was viewed like being selfish, like you shouldn't need that. And we absorb those messages about receiving and about money very, very early. And for some of us, maybe those messages are not spoken out loud, right? Sometimes they're just energy. Sometimes you're just watching and you're witnessing the conversations, right, that are happening around you. Sometimes they're unspoken rules of the home that you grew up in. But those messages become beliefs, and those beliefs become patterns. And then those patterns are like what runs your internal operating system. And it's running everything that you do today. It's like running underneath it. And I think that we are very trained into those beliefs. And it can be confusing because we, as young people, we don't actually have the ability to even understand or comprehend the money, things like that. And so I want you to take a minute and I want you to think back for a minute. What did you learn about money when you were growing up? So just think for a minute. What were some of the things that were said or unsaid? So money doesn't grow on trees. We can't afford that. Uh, Rich people are greedy. It's selfish to want more. You should be happy with what you have. Good people don't need everything. Donate all of your time. Money is the root of all evil. Like, what were some of the things that you were taught, that you heard growing up? Or, you know what, maybe it wasn't words. Maybe money in your home was related to stress, or you could feel the conflict. Maybe your parents were fighting. Maybe it was something you knew not to talk about or not to ask for. Or you could feel like that there was separation or division. Like I know in my family, my dad always said, You don't ever tell anybody how much money you make or how much you spent on anything. It's none of their business. And I always thought, well, why? Like, who cares? But it was a spoken rule in our house. And then I think also one of the things that we do is maybe in your life you watched people and people that you love the most in the world, your mother or your grandmother or some of the people that shaped your life, and you watched them give everything that they had to everyone around them and never fill themselves back up. And you learned it. You learned it without anyone maybe even saying a word, just by doing, just by being, right? And I don't know about you, but I learned it in the sense of that's what good people do. Good people give, 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 give. That's what loving people do. They give, 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 give. That's what spiritual people do. They give, 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 and then they give some more. But receiving, that was for other people. Okay. That was for people that were selfish. That was for people that maybe didn't care as much about other people. But what I started to recognize is that even though that's what I was learning, that wasn't true for me. And I knew it, but I didn't know how to live it yet. So, I would witness some of the conversations. My parents fought a lot about money. It was one of the things when I got married to my husband that we had conversations around, because I never wanted money to be an issue. Never wanted to repeat the relationship with money that I had, that I grew up witnessing. I never wanted to experience that in my marriage. And so it was really important to me that um, that we had open, clear communication around money, and that we would be on the same page. And, when I think about receiving and what I learned about receiving, and then what I took into those first few years in business, I remember I would make excuses for why I was charging. If my prices went up, I would explain away why I had to increase my prices. I would overgive on my time, sometimes by like an hour, because I felt as though I had to earn over and above. I had to earn um, to be able to be worthy of receiving. And I think one of the things that I want to make sure that all of you recognize is that the patterns that we grew up in and that we learned from the people around us who loved us, who were doing the best they could with the knowledge and the wisdom that they had, right? Those patterns made sense when we learned them in the environment we were in, with the people we were around, the circumstances that we were brought up in. And part of that's because we're trying to belong. Part of that's because we're trying to be the good person. Um, Part of it, I think, is we're trying to stay safe. But here's the thing that we need to recognize in where we are now. We're not that child anymore. We're not that child anymore. We are at a place and a time in our lives where we actually get to make those decisions. And so this is where we start to shift from what we learned and how we were trained and how we were raised into talking about identity. Because this identity is something that has been a big conversation in my masterminds and in my community lately, but I don't think it gets talked enough about. And for a lot of us, being a giver isn't just something that we do here and there. It's actually an identity. It's who we are. If you are someone that relates to that and you're watching right now, I would love for you to just type in giver. Like if that's an identity that you recognize that's a foundational part of who you are, it's woven deeply into your identity. Type in giver in the comments. That's being the helper. That's being the one who's going to show up, being the strong one, being the caregiver, being the rescuer, being the person that everybody can go to, right? And quite honestly, that identity feels good, right? It feels good to be able to help others. It feels good to support other people. It feels good to be purposeful. It feels natural. It feels healthy. So, who are my givers? Type in giver in there. Who are my givers? And here's the thing, I don't want to negate that all of that is true, that it is so valuable to be all of those things. But here's the challenge. When someone offers the giver help, so when someone offers us help, when someone wants to give to us, when the flow starts to get reversed, so instead of us giving, we're receiving, that oftentimes is uncomfortable. It can feel threatening because if I'm not the giver, if I'm not the one that's doing it all and holding it all together, if I'm not the one that needs nothing, then who am I? Who am I then? And if I'm not endlessly giving, then I don't know who I am. And not knowing who you are and facing that identity crisis is super uncomfortable. And without the balance of receiving to giving, we are usually over givers. And what we do is then we deplete ourselves. Come on, my givers, you all know, right? You give to the point that you have nothing left to give, and oftentimes can get sick because of that. So the real work underneath the receiving work is learning who you are if you're not always giving, and knowing that if you choose to start receiving, it's going to ask you to let go of a version of you. And the version of you is the one that earned, I want you to hear this. The version of you is the one that earned love by being useful. The version of you that stayed safe by not needing anything from anyone. The version of you that proved your worth by how much you could give. Let me know if you can feel that. Can you feel that in your bones? And so stepping out of that identity and stepping towards something healthier and towards something that could be more true is going to feel like loss instead of freedom. And, I've had a variety of different times in my life and different iterations and identities of myself where I recognize that giving was absolutely tied to my identity. And if I was being 100% honest, I would say in some ways it still is, especially in the work that I do. I have a community that I give to. I have family that I give to. I have friends that I give to. I have a team that I give to. I have a lot of desire to give. The challenge is, and the blessing is that it doesn't have to come from a place of not being good enough or being worthy if we can balance that with receiving. knowing that you need to receive, knowing that it's safe to receive, knowing that being a receiver doesn't mean you can't still be a giver. That actually is where the harmony lies, in allowing yourself to give and receive, to bring the harmony in. Because here's what comes up when we start to make those changes is guilt. Guilt keeps that pattern going. Guilt is what fires the moment that you begin considering making the change, asking for more, charging more, saying no. Guilt is what speaks up in that moment when you want to say no. It's what shows up when you let somebody else do something for you. Guilt. And one of the things about guilt that might surprise you is that it isn't always a signal that you have done something wrong. Sometimes guilt can be a signal that you're doing something different that goes against your training, goes against your programming. And so it's breaking a pattern, and that feels like you've done something wrong because it's so ingrained in you. So when we start to feel guilt, sometimes it's just a recognition that a pattern uh, is being broken, and that it's giving you a sign that the old version of you wouldn't have allowed this new version of you to exist. And then, of course, we can talk about the nervous system that is so attached to what it knows and what's familiar. And so it's going to interpret it as wrong or as dangerous. And so it's going to send the message of guilt. And it sends the message of guilt so that you get back to your pattern. You do the thing you usually do. You stay safe in the familiar, right? Because that's what's going to protect the pattern. And so it's all understandable. Like, it makes sense, but it's not healthy. So here's what I want you to sit with for a minute. Guilt that comes from hurting someone, that's important to listen to. That's giving you feedback so that you can adjust behavior. Guilt that comes from receiving, resting, um, getting help, saying no, charging more money, taking up space. That guilt, that is not your conscience. That is your conditioning. And you are allowed to feel it. Just acknowledge it. But you do not need to respond to it. I can feel guilty about this, and I'm going to do it anyway. Because that is how patterns change. We don't wait until the guilt goes away, because it won't go away. You've got to push up against it. You've got to do something different. You've got to shift your focus. And the more that you choose differently when you're feeling that feeling, the quieter the guilt will get. And it's a process. It doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen over time. So there's a difference between receiving and being selfish. And I think there's fear that sits underneath all of it. If I receive too much, am I taking from someone else? If I charge more, am I being greedy? If I let myself rest, am I being lazy? If I say no, am I being selfish? And what I want you to hear is receiving is never selfish. Not from a place of allowing yourself to find harmony. Selfishness is taking something without care of the impact that it will have on others. Receiving is allowing what is being offered to actually be received. That is a profound difference. Do you guys recognize that difference? It's a profound difference. One is not caring. It doesn't matter if I take this and how it affects everybody else. The other one is allowing what is being offered to you. When you receive a compliment, for example, and you just receive it fully, you're not taking something from somebody else. You're not taking anything from the person who gave it. When you charge fairly and equally for your work, you're not stealing from your clients. When you rest, you're not robbing anybody of their rest or anything else. And when you say no to things that drain you, you're actually maintaining your own energy. You're protecting your ability to say yes to what actually matters. So receiving does not diminish the people around you. Receiving makes you more available to them. Like there's so much more to give, and you can give from a full cup instead of from an empty one. When we think about this, like if you were going to go to a person for support, you're going to go get energy work done, let's say. A rested person that is in a really good, healthy place is going to hold space and be able to help support you much better than someone that is exhausted. A person who has learned how to receive can give from the abundance that they already have instead of from resentment and frustration and depletion. And that's actually not selfish. That's healthy. That's sustainable. And that is how we serve consistently in a healthy way without burning out. And then we can talk about money, because this is where a lot of spiritual people get really tangled up, kind of like I was talking about in my story. There's a belief, sometimes it's spoken, sometimes not spoken, that money and spirituality, they don't go together. That if you are really called to serve, then you should serve for free, just like I was trained, right? Or at a very minimum, just enough to get by. But what I want to suggest is that I want to challenge that, because I believe that money is energy. That's it. Like literally, that is it. Money is energy. Money is energy in exchange for value. So when you do work that helps someone, that supports their life, that gives them tools that they use and that they carry for years, oftentimes their entire life, that exchange of energy isn't just appropriate. It's how energy is meant to work. Energy flows, friends. It flows in and out, give and receive, offered and returned. So think about what happens in nature when a river flows one way. It stagnates, it dries up. The ecosystem around it isn't sustainable. But when there's full flow, in and out, give and receive, then everything moves. That's what a healthy, energetic exchange looks like. And when you block the receiving side of that flow, you actually block the entire flow. It's like a hose with a kink in it. The giving eventually stops. And not because you want it to, but because literally there is nothing left. Literally, there's nothing left. So what we want to do is learn how to begin to receive. Change the way you are thinking about things, the way that you are seeing things. letting go of the guilt that you have carried that was probably um, uh, misfocused, misdirected. And I think that, there are times what I see a lot of times in my community because I help serve people in personal and spiritual development, and I serve entrepreneurs in business development. And I see a lot of entrepreneurs, especially. And so you may be, this may fit for you as well, but they don't feel deserving or worthy of, let's say, raising their prices or charging for a particular thing, or saying, "Hey, I can't go over," or things like that. And then what happens is when I help them to start to see money differently, energy differently, when I help them to recognize the value and many of the things that we've just talked about today, then they start to recognize that this actually becomes the work. This actually becomes work, receiving in alignment with the value that you provide. And what that does is it allows the energy to flow both ways. And you're trusting that being compensated fairly doesn't actually make you less spiritual, it makes you sustainable. And that then can serve for a lifetime. I think that it's one of the reasons people get so burned out is because they're doing. They're putting so much out there and they don't have the energy then because there's not an exchange of it. They get resentful, all different kinds of things happen. I've witnessed it so often. So let's talk about how we can actually shift this. Okay. So, first thing is patterns run deep. The training happens super early, and the guilt you feel is real. However, we don't give attention to that guilt. So, first thing is, I want you to just start catching yourself. Notice without judgment. Start paying attention to how you respond when someone offers you something, anything, a compliment, a gift, support, help, a payment. Do you receive it fully or do you kind of minimize it or deflect? And I just want you to notice it and notice it without shame. You don't even need to fix it yet. Just notice because we can't change something we cannot see. Awareness is the first step. Okay. The second one is start to practice receiving small things and receiving them like with an open heart and fully. So when someone gives you a compliment, say thank you. I really appreciate that. And then just let it go. Don't don't try to say something back to go, oh, this old thing, I just got it for 99 cents. Or yeah, I haven't even brushed my hair. If they say you looked good, just thank you. That's the only thing you need to do. It's a very simple practice, but it can create really big shifts. The third thing is start to look at where you're undergiving to yourself because receiving isn't just about receiving from other people. It's also about allowing yourself to receive. This week I wrote a newsletter I wrote an intro for our newsletter and I wrote about rest. And it's a challenging topic for me. And I shared from a very open and vulnerable place about how much that is a challenge for me, learning to receive rest. And I know for some people it sounds really funny, but it's not been a funny experience for me. I've never, number one, I have a lot of fire, so I don't think I need as much rest as the average person because I got a lot of fire going in my life and in my chart, by the way. But allowing yourself that rest or that support or that time or that space or that pleasure and seeing where you withhold from yourself the things that you will give so freely to other people. So start looking at it in reverse almost. That can really help. And that's where a lot of the work is, guys. Then start to reframe your energy exchange. If you feel guilty about charging for your work, one of the things I would do is ask myself, if someone came to me with a problem that I could solve, And I said, oh, no, 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 you don't need to pay me. Am I actually serving them? Or am I teaching them that that work has no value? Because when you have a fair exchange, what you're doing is you're honoring both people, and it keeps that energy flowing in a healthy way. And then the last thing that I would suggest is inviting spirit into your relationship with money if money is something that you are challenged with. Because if money is energy and spirit is the source of all energy, then your relationship with money is a spiritual relationship. So you can meditate on it, you can pray on it, you can ask for healing in the places where it feels edgy or scary. I mean, it could be a really simple, intentional prayer. Spirit, help me receive with grace and ease. Allow me to release the patterns that block the flow. Um, Help me to trust that I am worthy and deserving of an equal exchange of energy. As simple as that. And then watch what happens. 'Cause that's how we start to shift and open ourselves up to receiving. Okay. So now we're going to take a little commercial break. I'm going to pause here for a second because something is happening right now that I'm really excited about. And it's something that um, is like, I'm just super excited about it. Because the thing about receiving is that it looks like it's giving yourself permission to experience different things, right? Things that fill you up, things that you enjoy, um, things that move you, move your heart, move your soul, things that remind you of who you are. And so, one of the things that I wanted to share right now, we are getting ready to leave for Ireland and Scotland. So, we're heading to stone circles and ancient cliffs and castles and the magic and the mystical energy of Scotland and Ireland, and places where thousands of years of ceremony and prayer live in the ground beneath your feet. And so this is something that we have a group of 31 people that are traveling with us. And there are a lot of people that wanted to come and couldn't come. And so now you don't need a passport to come with me. So from June 17th to June 30th, I'm bringing Ireland and Scotland straight to you through my eyes and through some of our community members that are going with us eyes on a sacred lands virtual journey. So every day we're going to send you videos or pictures or voice notes or a little teaching or a reflection of the raw and ancient beauty from this particular corner of the world. And you get to experience alongside a whole community of beautiful human beings who are on this journey with us. So there are two ways to join. You can go and check out the information. I'll put the link in here in a minute. The Sacred Journey is $88, and it is daily messages from the land, videos, teachings, community space where you can join, and you get full replay access to all those videos. That's the first level. And so you can join us literally be with us as we're posting pictures and things like that in a private area in our community. And then we have another level, which is a soul companion, because I had people asking me if they could be part of the ceremonies, because we are going to be doing some ceremonies there. So everything in the sacred journey you get, but you also get 2 live ceremonies that will be held on sacred sites and a handwritten postcard that we will mail you from Ireland or Scotland. So you have something physical, real, and tangible to bring that energy from the ancient lands to your hands. So you don't have to be in the physical environment to experience the energy. And so this is your invitation to receive something really beautiful. The link is, I'm going to put the link up here, and then you can also get the link in the description notes on YouTube afterwards as well, once this is posted. So it's schooloflight.biz. If you just go to schooloflight.biz and you click on the calendar and go to June 17th, you will find it there. Or you can actually put in the entire web address, schooloflight.biz, and then go down to the calendar of events. Or you can always shoot me an email, sunny@schooloflight.biz, and we'll send you the link. Super, super excited about this. We have done this, um, we did it in Peru. We did it when we walked the Camino. And I did it one other trip, I think Alaska. I can't remember. Was it Alaska? And people absolutely loved it because they felt like literally they were there. They could feel the energy of the environment. So if you are somebody that's been wanting to, or you would have loved to have gone to Ireland, Scotland, I want to encourage you to come and join us that way. You'll love it. It'll be perfect. All right. Then I want to share with you um, that we are diving into our heart to heart segment. Oh, we do have a free webinar coming up also on July 7th. So if you want to go check that out, schooloflight.biz/webinar. So our heart to heart segment, friends, this is my favorite part of our podcast. This is where we just get to sit together. You can ask me questions, real life questions about anything that you have questions about. So if you are watching the replay, you can still ask your questions in there as well, because I do read all of the comments and I will respond to those. Now, what I do is I have the opportunity, and you have the opportunity to answer questions in advance or ask them right here live while we are here live. So I've got a couple of questions that have already been submitted and sent in. So I'm going to answer those questions first. And then I'm going to come to you, my live audience. So go ahead and throw your questions in here, and I will answer them in just a moment. All right, friends. So welcome to Heart with Sunny. So we have a couple of questions that have come in, and I don't ever read these questions in advance because I like to actually see, I like them to go kind of more naturally. And so I want to share some of those with you today. So first question, I've heard you mention School of Light a few times. What actually happens inside of there, and is it right for someone like me? Well, I can't quite answer that because I don't know exactly who you are, but I can tell you in general that School of Light basically is a place online that is a community, and we have a lot of different classes with a variety of different teachers. So we have memberships, which are spiritual, personal, and business development. We have a variety of different classes that you can attend, just a one-off class, and they will be on a variety of different topics: healing, energy, crystals, forgiveness, uh, hormones, sex, like all different types of topics that our community asks for. And so if you are somebody that loves to learn and you love to connect with like-minded and like-hearted people, you can come and certainly join School of Light. There is free access where you can get up to, I think there's about 30 free videos in the free access area. And then there's a community page, so similar to Facebook, but in our own private community. So I would encourage you to check it out. If you just go to schooloflight.biz and you go to the website, you'll get the information right there. So I hope that helps. I'm sorry I don't have your specifics, so I can't answer specifically if it's best for you. But I think it's a good place to start because there's a free area there. Okay. What is one thing you believed about yourself 10 years ago that you've completely released? And what replaced it? That's a great question. I should have read that one in advance. Something that I believed about myself 10 years ago. I would say, well, 10 years ago, I believed that I'd be a vegetarian for the rest of my life. And that is completely released. And what replaced it was I am no longer vegetarian. I'm a meat eater. I think that a lot of times we get an identity around particular areas that we get so connected to that we can't imagine ourselves being any different. And what I've found for myself, at least, is that as far as a vegetarian, the reason that I became a vegetarian and the beliefs around that did not change. So the reason I became a vegetarian is because I could feel the energy of the animals in the way they died. And I was so sensitive um, that it really affected my mental and emotional state and my energetic state. And so I couldn't tolerate eating animals. Um, and I still recognize that that can happen. And it does happen. And especially when I first started, it did happen very strongly for me. However, what I also recognized is that this human body, at the age and stage of life that it is, 55 years old, having not eaten meat for, at that time I was 53, for 30 something years, um, my body was suffering. It was malnourished. It was extremely low in protein. I had very little muscle. I was thin, but I had very little muscle. And as you get older, these are things that are critical for health and longevity. And so I guess the thing that I believed was that I'd always be a vegetarian for my whole life. And what replaced it is that um, I would never say never on very many things because we change and we grow and our needs and our wants and our desires and our experiences also change and they also grow. And even though it was very difficult for me, I cried for the first, goodness, I cried for the first couple months every time that I ate the meat. And then spirit said, thank the animal. And I don't know why I didn't think about that because I use gratitude in so many areas of my life, but I didn't think about it. And so I just started thanking the animal for what it was offering me and the health and wellness that it was offering me. And that helped. And now I've been eating meat for 2 years. I've been able to build about 8 pounds of muscle on my body, which was so, so needed, and help support my hormones better and my physical um, body in so many different ways. So that's a great question. Thank you very much. One I had to really think about. Um, what does a really hard day look like for you? And how do you actually move through it? Goodness, these are deep questions, you guys. You guys got some questions out there for me? If you're live, come on, throw me your questions. Okay, what does a really hard day look like for you, and how do you actually move through it? A hard day for me looks like when I have several people in my circle, and when I say my circle, these could be friends, could be family members, or it could be community members, because I have a very, I would say, a very intimate community. And, it's not like they're a number and I don't know anything about them. I know my community. I know my clients. I know their names. I know their kids. I know their spouses. I know their loves. I know their weaknesses. I know their challenges. And when, in general, when one or two people or a few people are struggling, it's okay. I can handle that because I've learned how to maintain my energy really well. So it doesn't usually affect me. But a hard day is when I feel it from all sides. So maybe I've got something going on personally. Maybe a friend is struggling with something. Maybe several members of my community are struggling. And maybe it was a night where I didn't get a lot of sleep, or I feel more depleted, or I don't have a lot of energy, and that's what a hard day looks like for me. And how do I move through it? I'm going to be honest. It depends on what that day looks like. If it's a day where I have some space, then probably one of the things I'm going to do is go into meditation. I'm going to probably lay on my PEMF mat. I probably am going to get in the tub. Those are if I have space. Now, if I don't have space, which is oftentimes the case because I have a full schedule and I'm working every day, and so I might not have the space. If I'm in a really difficult place, I'll just cancel things and create the space. That doesn't happen very often, but sometimes that's necessary. But if I don't have the space, usually what I'll do is I'll just write down a few of the things that are kind of sitting at the top of my mind to do kind of a brain dump to get some of that energy out and either burn it or throw it away just to help me to then redirect and focus um, on what I need to focus on for the day. And then I don't always do this, but I intend to, then go back to it at the end of the day and actually feel my feelings. That's been something that's been difficult for me. I'm really good at understanding why a particular thing is happening the way that's happening and intellectualize it. And and so sometimes it's hard for me to go back into it. And I think this is true for most of you. If you're watching this right now, is that true for you? Like, you can go, "Okay, I need to deal with that, and I'll deal with that later," and then later's a liar, later never comes. So I really try to be intentional about coming back to it. I don't always get there, but I really do my best based on the circumstance and the situation. So thank you for that, question. You guys made me have to really think about things today. All right, guys, I'm coming to the chat, so let's see what some of your questions are. Do you see difficulty in receiving equating to poor self worth? I do, Helen. I think that a lot of times the reason that we don't feel deserving of receiving is because we don't feel like we have value. We don't feel worthy of receiving the thing, whether it's money, whether it's a gift, whether it's support, whether it's help, whatever it happens to be. And so I do think it's something that is very important to be able to practice the receiving, even if you don't feel 100% worthy yet. Like, one of the things you can do is just open your arms. And just as you open your arms, you open your chest, and you're like, I am worthy, I am deserving. And you start to say that and do that and do this action until you actually feel it. So that can be really valuable tool that I would highly encourage any of you to use. Thank you for that great question. Definitely feel guilty if I allow myself to receive. As long as I can do for myself, then I can take care of myself as well as help others. Yeah, Rita, I hear you. Okay, well, we had a real great person on here that had lots of comments, and I'm going to go ahead and share them because this is one of the things that this is receiving also, right? Sometimes we receive feedback, and we receive feedback that is not kind, not positive, not even doesn't even fit with the conversation that we're having. And so we had someone on here, oh my God, cover your saggy chest. So gross. You are not hot or cute. You are an old saggy hag. Seek mental help. You are not okay. You really need help bad. You don't even realize how sick you are. Who is this freak talking to? Lock this retard up now, MAGA. Okay. So there's not really, well, there is a question in there. And the question was, who is this freak talking to? So I'll tell you who this freak is talking to. This freak is talking to those that are interested in listening to what it is that I have to share. Not forcing myself on anybody else. This is a channel that is my channel, and I get to actually talk about the things that I desire to talk about. And you get to be here and participate, or you get to not be here and not participate. And certainly, we have the option to not have to comment on everybody's page if you don't like how they look, how their saggy old chest is, or what they have to say. And so, although you have the freedom of speech, which is a beautiful thing and something that we, at least for now, still have in our country, I also have a freedom of speech and get to share whatever it is that I desire to share when I want to and how I want to on my own personal channel. So, Thank you for creating that awareness that there are sometimes mean people in the world, and you don't have to receive that. That's important, friends. You don't have to receive that. So you can not take it personally. You can acknowledge that people are in their own pain to say ugly, nasty things like that when it's not necessary for them to say anything. And, this is part of what's happened with the World Wide Web and social media is that people are keyboard warriors and they feel like they can just spit out and share anything as if um, with having a screen between them to protect them. And unfortunately, those of us that are brave enough to stand up and to speak up and to share with humility and support humanity in a variety of ways, we also put ourselves out there to receive comments and statements like that. And that is a reality. So, for those of you that see some of the people that are out there, influencers, teachers, whatever, it takes energy to be able to do this, and it is a gift. And if I were my old self 30 years ago, something like that probably would have bothered me. In the stage of life that I'm at now, with the wisdom and the knowledge that I have, I just see somebody that's hurting and that needs attention. And so you got your 5 minutes right there, buddy. So uh, thanks. Appreciate it. I appreciate you giving us a way to be able to direct that conversation in a way that we could be kind and loving and gentle. And if there's something that you don't like, unless it's harming somebody, scroll on by, friends. Scroll on by. All right, friends, that is our time together today. I hope you enjoyed it. And, I'm actually curious, those of you that are live with me, or because you can see the comment that some of you probably can't see it, but I did read it for you. I'd love to hear your feedback on that. What do you think about people that jump on other people's pages and have things like that to say? What do you How do you feel when you read that? And maybe you're someone that actually does that. And maybe you're somebody that is like repulsed by it. I don't know, but I'm curious um, how that affects you. Does it bother you? Does it make you feel protective? Does it piss you off? Because here's the thing, it's not worth giving your attention to. I would certainly remind you of that. And can those things be hurtful? Yes, if you take them in, or if you have, I had a video that went viral at the beginning of this year or the end of last year, and got lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of comments. Like I think like it's been seen by like 1 million people or something close to that, and there were, I don't know, thousands of comments, and so many of them were so mean, so mean. And it's just interesting awareness of the state of people's mental health. And, what we're going to do is we're going to keep on shining our light. So I am curious. I'd love to hear your feedback, what you think. Okay. So thank you guys for being here, and thank you for being willing to look at your level of receiving. Receiving is sacred, and it's the other half of what keeps things flowing. So giving and receiving, we need both. And when you learn to receive with the same grace and love and openness that you give, that's when things change, friends. Your energy changes, your business changes, your relationships changes, your ability to serve humanity in other ways change, and you're worthy of that change. You always have been. So, hey, drop a comment and tell me, I'd love to hear this. What is one area of your life that you're ready to practice receiving more fully? One area. I read every single one of your comments. And so I would love for you to share that. And again, if this episode resonated with you guys, please share it with someone who needs to hear it today. If you are on YouTube, there is the opportunity to support this podcast. You can offer gifts. You can offer little bonuses, things like that. We accept all of it. We're willing to receive as well. That helps us to keep this podcast going And so any love that you can offer us, monetary exchange or support through sharing, is a way that we can be open to receive as well. And also to remember that when we allow our divinity to guide our humanity, life becomes lighter, more intentional, and certainly more aligned. I love you, friends. I'll see you next time. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Mwah. Take care, guys.
So self-service. That's the way. Welcome to Soul Talk. Shine today.